So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forward. So this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Phil Pinder, who's director at the Potions Cauldron. So firstly, Phil, thanks so much for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and the Potions Cauldron to the audience, what you do, the amazing things you've done, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm Phil Pinder. I'm Director of Wizardry at the Potions Cauldron. Been doing this since 2018 when we launched in October. Basically, we started out as a little retail shop in the Shambles. We now describe ourselves as a manufacturer of soft drinks. So a bit like our retail stuff, class themselves as a technology company. We're not soft drinks. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to our magical soft drinks. And then we have different ways of selling them. So we sell them in our own retail store in the Shambles. And very soon to be here in Edinburgh, where I am now. We're just taking keys to a brand new Potions Cauldron, which will open hopefully in the summer this year in Edinburgh. And then we've also got our hole in wonder attractions, which are Wizard Golf. So we've got two of those so far. We've got one in York, one in Blackpool, and hopefully a third one very soon this year as well. We're currently under offer of one at the moment, which hopefully we'll be able to reveal soon. And in terms of, we also got a very healthy wholesale business. So we supply the likes of Hamleys, Centre Parks, some big names that you may have heard of, but also lots of little independents as well of our magical drinks up and down the country. And we've grown very rapidly as a company in the first 5 years. So first year we turned over like £270,000. This year we're probably going to be over 2 million. And then next year we should easily hit £3.5–4 million. So and been a profitable business, throughout that as well, which, having run businesses for over 20 years, it's great to be able to say that, especially even with the pandemic behind us.
Absolutely amazing. What a great story, what a great growth curve. And I believe you're also literally just been on Dragon's Den.
We have indeed. So yeah, we're fresh from the den. So me and my business partner Ben Fry, we started the business together, and we saw last year that it basically came about because Deborah Meaden had mentioned one episode. I'm a huge Dragon's Den fan, and she'd mentioned you'd be trying to sell us unicorn poo next to somebody on the den. So I tweeted Deborah that night when the show was on and said, we sell unicorn poo. A little video of my boy we did during lockdown where he was in our stables. We dressed one of our white horses up as a unicorn and had him feeling the fudge into as though it was unicorn poo from the stable into the jars. And a little video that just was one of the little ways we used during lockdown to keep our customers entertained, really. And we sent that to Deborah. She was definitely in for. She went, you need to bring this on the den. And I thought, actually, maybe we do. So we applied, and very quickly they got back in touch and said, we love what you do. Let's start the process. And then we started what has to be the most difficult process of anything I have ever done in my life. The paperwork to go on the show was this thick. That was the due diligence. So everything from contracts you've dealt with, business leases to prove your premises, absolutely any question that could arise in the den you had to prove. And then it got harder because when we've been in the den, which we recorded last May, we then had to prove everything we'd said with more due diligence. So in the end, we had a good probably 6–7 inches thick of paperwork we had to print out and give to them. So enormous, lots of hard work. We went into the den. We filmed for 3 hours in the den, non-stop. You go in, you're there in front of the dragons, and then that's it. They ask you question after question. And the process for us took over 3 hours. We were getting very nervous in the middle. A couple of dragons went out quickly. Another dragon didn't seem very interested at all. And then we were getting, Peter Jones started it all off by being very critical, asking lots of difficult questions, which sort of set a pattern in place for the other dragons to go out. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is this gameplay by him? Is this a gameplay? He must see this as a good business. And then sure enough, at the end, he came back in and made us an offer, which we thought was a little bit mean. And he was just trying to be profiteering, offering us a third of the business, the £200,000. And it actually made it his largest ever offer in the den history. So he's never offered that much money on his own before, despite being in for 20 series. We are proud to say that we also turned him down when he did come down, even though he was the only dragon left in, which, as probably your viewers and listeners will know, that when you're in the den, it's very difficult to negotiate when there's no dragons left in except one. But we managed to pull him down from his third to 15%. But it was still way above our 5% initial offering, and we'd have done a deal around 10%, maybe even 12%, but 15% we just felt was a little bit too high. And also it was also just like, it did seem like he was just seeing it as a cash transaction to make more cash. He wasn't really offering to help expand us. We were doing that anyway. So we took the very difficult decision on the spur of the moment to say no. and walk away. But yeah, that was 10 months ago. It went out last week, and I have to say it's been great publicity. And anybody thinking about it, give it a go, because it's a simple 250 words to submit your application, and if they come back to you, they come back to you. If they don't, they don't. And give it a punt. It's a bit of free publicity. You might end up with a dragon investor in your business, but make sure you've got all your answers before you do.
Brilliant. So it's interesting that you've been, just come off the Dragon's Den. And one thing I often see, Phil, is how easily people fall over basic numbers, which I always thought meant a lack of preparation. But clearly, from what you're saying, there's a massive amount of preparation you have to do to get on the show.
Yeah, completely. I think a lot of it is to do with nerves. I mean, to be honest, I'm never nervous. I'm happy to do interviews. I do lots of speaking engagements. I used to work in politics as a lobbyist, so would happily speak up to a hall of 100 MPs and do a presentation for my clients.
Yeah.
And I've done all that, and yet I was still nervous standing in front of these 5 people, and I could hear voices inside my head going, "Don't forget your words, don't forget your words." And for us, we'd actually had to, because we went in just at the end of our financial year, and they were like, "Oh, we want your latest accounts." So we went to our accountant, and he literally prepared them the day before we went on air to broadcast. So we had like 24 hours to memorize the numbers.
Yes.
And also we spotted ourselves with some mistakes in the numbers. So like the stock figure, for example, was just a figure we carried over from the previous year. He hadn't actually asked us what our stock take figure was, and obviously like this. So I can understand. I think the biggest mistake you can make in the den is not knowing what some of the business terms mean. And to be honest, from what we've since learned, I think it could have gone either way for us, but from what they said, it's that actually, if you get an offer, they're always going to be kind to you in the edit, because the dragons have said there's value in your business. So I think you got to prepare as much as possible, but you will get tripped up how to do it. And for us, it was simply down to the fact that the accountant had prepared the accounts, and he'd just written all our stock off at a minimal value, as accountants sometimes do. But that left a little bit of a hole in the accounts.
Yeah,
we knew instantly. Thankfully, on air, it only got a couple of sentences, and they never really chased it in the edit, so we didn't look too stupid. But honestly, there was about 50 minutes of that in the den, and I think I ended up making a comment of Deborah Mead said to Peter, "These guys are wizards. Let me know when you find the numbers." And I said, "And me." So the numbers did look a little bit sketchy, but it is that, and it's kind of because they're drilling you on numbers that you don't deal with every day. They're not the kind of like the cash flow numbers that they deal with. It's actually the prepared accounts, the ones that you found to Companies House, the ones that you have to pay your hefty tax bill on, the ones that you don't want to remember because they're a little bit the scary ones. But yeah, it's definitely a fun experience, and don't regret it. But advice for anyone else doing it: definitely revise as much as possible, but do be prepared for them chucking in a last-minute thing of, "Oh, we need what you did yesterday," and things like that.
Amazing, absolutely! What a great experience. And you mentioned a bit about your background already, as being a lobbyist. Sorry, but if you could perhaps talk a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one, that would be great.
Yeah, so I probably always had an eye for business. I started out doing probably like 7-8 paper rounds when I was 13. Ended up working in the corner shop almost for free, but I ended up probably earning a decent amount of money for a 13, 14-year-old kid, all the way up until 16. But always had a passion for, you could do that better. You could do that better, to the point where I'd probably say I'm unemployable. I have been sacked a few times for probably questioning things a bit too much. Won a few tribunals in my time as well. But yeah, it's and I think from that's what took me into lobbying, and kind of been outspoken, and it was a natural career for me. Really enjoyed it to start with. Ended up working for clients I didn't really like doing what I was doing, and I was thinking, do I really want to be lobbying for these guys? And that's when I started a cufflink business in my desk drawer, and started selling cufflinks online, started doing shows, started making some good money, to be fair. And I thought, so I cut my job down to 2 days a week, and then eventually 1 day a week. Thankfully, I was in a well-paid job, so I was able to do that. And eventually took the crazy step of getting a shop in Covent Garden Market. That went really well. Sadly, the 7/7 bombings in London really affected the trade because we relied heavily on tourists, and not just what I'd call international tourists that weren't really put off by that, but it was the kind of domestic tourists, people going on a theatre trip. And that's where I did really well from. And it's kind of like, it's been a good learning study in how you cope with those things afterwards. And then I took that business online, eventually took it to York, and the premises we have in York now in the Shambles were the premises of Cuffs & Co, my previous business before I shut that down. And basically Ben, my business partner, obviously worked in radio all his life. He's been a breakfast show host for Minster FM. Worked at Leeds United as a stadium announcer, and it was a director of communications there. And Ben and I used to do a little business show on Minster FM together, just a 10-minute little slot each week. Me as in my position as chair of the York High Street Forum. And we just basically used to catch him on a Friday. And then literally walking down the Shambles one day, I was saying to Ben, I'm going to be giving up the Shambles shop. And he went, you can't give this shop up. We have to do a business together. Let's have a think. And literally walking the length of the Shambles, we came up with the idea for the Potions Cauldron. And then the next day I went back to Ben and went, are you serious? Do you want to do this? And he went, yeah, let's do it. And we didn't even really have an idea of what we were going to sell at that point. We just knew we wanted to create a shop that gave magical experiences to kids and families and made them feel like they were part of a movie without actually being on a movie set, because the Shambles is pretty special. Yes. And that's what we went for from day one, was that magical attraction. Then when we went down the road of like creating drinks, we decided that, from my experience of making cufflinks and shirts, you could just tag on your order onto a white label, and you could basically stick your own label on someone else's products. And naively thought you'd be able to do that with soft drinks. Sadly, you can't. You have to make everything from scratch. You have to own the recipe, and that naivety made us, create the drinks with the shimmer in, which, if you asked anyone, and even our current soft drinks manufacturer would tell you they don't like doing it. If we take the shimmer out tomorrow, they'd be very, very happy. It gets stuck in the production line. It costs us a fortune to clean the production lines down in between shifts. And it's a nightmare making the drinks. And, you can see why no one else does it. It's also, it only works in certain drinks. You've got to get the recipe right, the flavors right. And I think it was that naivety to go into it and knowing nothing about soft drinks that made us ask the impossible. Had we known about soft drinks, we'd have gone, nah, you can't do that. You can't do that. And I think sometimes that actually helps, is that the eye for the business, but the naivety to the product can help you come up with a great product. And hopefully this year, we're going to sell about 1 million bottles this year. We just done a huge deal with America. That'll be shipping in April from our new production facility. And we're possibly bringing on a supermarket called Hy-Vee in the coming days, who have got 330 stores across America. So that'll be huge for us if we can pull that one off.
Amazing. So when you were growing up, is this the sort of thing you saw yourself doing?
Yeah, totally. And I always used to have little fantasies about owning a business and having a brand name all across a business. And it was always like weird business that I have in my head. I mean, I can think about one day I had an idea for one called Links Construction. And I just liked the idea of that. Was just walking on the paper, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool to have a big Links on the front of every Land Rover that was on the construction site? I've never been in construction. I am a dabbler in DIY. That's probably as far as it's gone. But Brilliant. I think it was always that passion to do something and have something. And I'm sure anybody in business will say to you, it's always cool when that first product arrives that you've created, that's got a label on that you've designed, and it's like, that's mine. No one else in the world has that. That's mine. Yeah, and it's thoroughly rewarding from that aspect. It's like a little baby you've created.
Absolutely. So looking at the growth of the business, what would you say are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome?
Bottling companies going bust on us. So we've had that twice now, believe it or not.
Wow.
Our bottling company last year went bust in June. We got our last bottles out of there in July. And to be honest, bearing in mind the drinks are the business, and it's very difficult to find the problem for us was we could go backwards and go to the last stage, 1,000 a week, or we could go to the next stage up and try and stretch up, and that's what we've done. We've gone to the next bottling size partner up. We've thankfully found a production company who basically, we said we used to do 3,000 to 4,000 bottles a week. We're now looking at 11,000 an hour we do. So our 2-day production last week created 90,000 bottles. So that gives you other problems as well. So you then need warehousing to store all that. So we've now got a 60,000 square foot warehouse. And then the other problems are that actually expanding and opening new stores in Edinburgh and places like that actually help, because we can distribute that amount of quantity across the business quicker. Obviously, COVID was a huge issue.
Yeah.
You know, everybody we supply and our own business is direct customer facing. We didn't even have an online presence when we went into COVID. Well, we had a website, but we didn't actually have any booking online. We didn't have any shop online. And because glass bottles had always been difficult to ship, and we went into COVID and we gave ourselves 4 weeks to set up a website and find a solution to shipping online. And we did that in the first lockdown, in the first kind of like 4 weeks of the first lockdown. Royal Mail were very helpful to help us set up an account in the middle of what, was strict lockdown procedures, which actually helped us enormously, because we had, 30,000 drinks sitting in the warehouse, mostly from an order from Hamleys that got cancelled because they didn't want the drinks, and things like that. So yeah, it was a very tough period, and coming through that, any business that's come through that, I would say to you, be proud, because you've come through what will probably be the most difficult thing ever in business. And if you've come through that, you can do anything.
I completely agree. I think, and even if you talk, I think if you take lockdown, you take the impact of Brexit and the war in Ukraine, I don't think you're going to have three things together that have been so significant across many, many businesses. And as you say, getting through these challenges is, it is a massive learning and a massive, achievement. And we can get through this, get through anything. Completely agree.
Yeah, totally.
So what would you say some of the biggest learnings you've had about business, Phil?
Yeah, I would say the first one I'd say is that anything is possible. And you can actually do what you want to do. Don't be put off by people telling you can't. Because had we done that, we would never be making soft drinks now. That said, it's sometimes a lot harder than you envisage. So, it's how you come up with that. And also, probably my biggest two tips would be, don't be afraid to hire in the experience if you haven't got a clue. This is something I have to learn really well, because I would happily sit here now and do the shop fit for our new premises here in Edinburgh. But that'll take me till probably, end August as a one-man person doing that. Yep. So I'm now drawing up lists of, get an electrician in to rewire. I'm trained to do that, but, that'll take me 2 weeks. So yep. Pay someone else to do it, and they'll do it a lot quicker than me, for one. I'm pretty good carpenter, hobby carpenter. I did the shop fitting for our current shop in the Shambles, if anyone goes there and sees that. But I did that in lockdown, so we had 6 weeks to do that, and it was, I did that in lockdown too. It's a nice little project, and I had all the time in the world, but we don't have that with this one. We're paying the rent. Well, we're not paying rent. We've got rent-free period, but as soon as we get the premises now, that this place, as soon as I get it open, it's cash in our pocket, sort of thing. So the quicker the better. But getting more trades. Don't be afraid to get in skills and help when you're either short for time or on a better thing. You need to sort of allocate a time cost to your own time. Yes. And I say, be honest. Do that at, say £15-20 an hour. And how long is that job going to realistically take you? And is it cheaper to get someone else in? Because far often than not, it is cheaper to get someone else in. And if your business can't afford it, you shouldn't be doing that. So in the first place, that's a job you shouldn't be doing. Find something that will pay for itself. And to give you an example there, we've taken on a managing director. There's me and Ben as founders of the business, but we've actually brought in a managing director with experience who basically knows how to run attractions. He used to work for Merlin, Madame Tussauds. Right. So Stuart is in day-to-day now, and he actually runs the business in terms of the day-to-day, and then we focus on expansion and the day-to-day behind the scenes of manufacturing the drinks and the bigger things that keep the business ticking. But Stuart runs on the day-to-day staffing and making sure all the venues are open. And then my final thing would be ride the positives. Because every week in business, you're going to get some big negatives. We just mentioned 3 that have been huge for business, but, I'll give you some little tiny ones that have popped up in my business in the past year. So our Wizard HQ, our warehouse, we're currently apparently flushing the toilet the equivalent of 180 times an hour every hour. There's 4 staff work there. So there's clearly some issue with the water rates, but we've had to pay in the last year over £6,000 in water rates. We finally got the water company to agree to suspend any further bills and to come and investigate. And at some point, they're going to refund us all in full. So, but obviously, £600 a month is a lot for any business, and especially when you haven't used that much. So you're going to get little headaches like that all the time that take up time, and you don't want to focus on them, but you have to because they're huge things. So what I say is every week, try and take 3 positives that you've done. So at least 2 positives from your business, and then the final one is so 3 steps, 2 positives, and 1 thing that you could have done in the last week slightly better had you tried. And you need to write those down and share them with your team. So 2 positives every week, and 1 thing that you could have done. And don't be too critical. The 1 thing you could have done better. It could have been like, actually, I should have got somebody to help me with that. I should have delegated that because I shouldn't have been doing that. And it can be simple things like that. So, they can be massive. Like for our business last week, we signed new premises in Edinburgh. We got that over the line. But they can be really minimal things. Yeah. And we've had them. There can be, like, for example, 2 weeks ago on my list was we negotiated new contracts on our energy and managed to get some good rates. So it can be real simple things like that, but they all add up and they can be all little savings. So think of those 2 positives every week because they're going to help you with the many negatives you're going to face in business.
Bang on! Yeah, great advice. We've done quite a bit of work on this, and the brain actually values, if you like, puts importance on negatives to sort of a value of 3 to 1. So we need at least 3 positive thoughts for every negative thought we have. So
exactly.
But digging out a positive in everything and anything. And the other parts of this I find, Phil, is that entrepreneurial people naturally are always focusing what they haven't achieved yet rather than what they have. And
spot on.
And if we don't celebrate, then in those difficult times when we're going, why the hell am I doing this? We don't have the answers because we don't celebrate even small wins on a regular basis. So really...
and we're all wired. We're all wired differently as well. So we all have different mental health issues. I'm actually somebody that doesn't generally get put off by anything, and I'm never really focused on like the bills and things like that. Thankfully, Ben is my business partner. But we have to help each other because what doesn't affect me might affect someone else and vice versa. I'm actually somebody that gets really wound up by a staff member going out and buying milk from a shop where it's costing £2 a bottle rather than £1.60 a bottle. And as crazy as that is for a multi-million-pound business, it's just the craziest little thing that makes me tick. But it makes all my staff go, oh, it's so clear. But Ben, on the other hand, he's more worried about the massive bills, whereas I'm like, it's 150 grand, it'll be fine. We'll find the money, and you've got to help everyone through it in your business because you're all going to have little things that send you over the edge and little things that make you tick. And as you say, it's crazy. And the final thing I would touch on, I think it's a massive thing for business is psychology of economics. So if you ask an economist 20 years ago, people buy things because they're cheaper than buying them elsewhere, or the cost of going to buy something. So, for example, I am buying a loaf of bread. I will walk to the nearest shop without inconveniencing me too much to buy that loaf of bread for less. That's not true because we now walk into shops and we'll happily pay £4 or £5 for an artisan loaf of bread. To an economist, that doesn't make any sense. And this is where the psychology of pricing comes in. And for any business, I recommend you look up a couple of books. There's one by William Poundstone called Priceless, and it talks about the psychology of pricing. And it is honestly, it's a real thin book, dead easy read, even if you're not a reader. And it's honestly, it's groundbreaking. It's a real subject I'm really passionate about. But you can Priceless touched on things like magic nines. So prices ending in a 9. It was originally invented to stop staff pinching money, so they had to open the till to get the penny change out, and that's why 99 pence existed. It was to get and it was Mr. Woolworth in America invented it. So they had to get the 1 cent out the till. They had to put the dollar in the till, and you could see they weren't stealing, and they weren't putting that dollar in their pocket. Brilliant. And that's why it was invented. But actually, we've since learned in a Western culture, nines and prices ending in 9, we psychologically prefer. And in the book, they talk about lots of examples and show you examples of a cashmere jumper where people paid a higher price because it ended in a 9 than a lower price where it didn't. And also there's some really bizarre stuff on numbers of, and it's all simple stuff that little businesses can do. So really go and have a look at that, because honestly, once you put your toe in the water with that kind of market, you'll be like, this is amazing. And it's real simple stuff. And, you know, if you come to the Potions Cauldron, you'll see we do it a lot. It's talking about things that are positive, as we said before, put people in a positive frame of mind and get them involved. And one of the things that here is a real simple example is in some of the days of you sit in the car, you want the car, and that's because you're touching the product. Yeah. So don't be one of these shops that puts your products behind glass. Yes, you're going to have security concerns. You're going to have things like this. If you can make people touch something, I always call it touch by. So, yeah. and I think this works really well for our products. You have to turn it upside down, you spin the bottle, and then the shimmer appears. Yeah. So, and everybody we get to do that, I would say probably 90% of the people will then buy the product. Brilliant. So if you can make people touch your product, you will make them buy it.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. It's so fascinating just working out how, as you say, how the brain works with pricing. And,
yeah, completely.
Well, I had a colleague actually, and he was very senior. In fact, he was CEO of he was very senior in that in RBS NatWest, and at one point he was head of insurance, especially white labeling for other organisations. And he said they got a great deal for BMW. And it was like, you can insure your BMW for, let's say, 125 quid for the year. And it was just like this amazing deal. And sales plummeted. And it was only when I think they sort of doubled or trebled the price, that people felt that was the right sort of level of you should pay for insurance for a BMW.
Yeah.
And so not only did the volumes go up, but obviously the margins were incredible. And it's just fascinating how it isn't just about a bargain, is it? It's about
not at all. It's and it's the as you delve into the subject further, it talks about the brain having 90% of the time you're in what one book I read called it as a Homer Simpson mode. So you go around and you're just thinking, donuts, and you just go and buy them. And it's like a subconscious brain that makes you make those decisions. Yeah. And it's only about, I think it's 8 to 10% of the time we're actually in control of our brains. Yeah. And half the time our brain is making us make decisions that we don't know about. It's what makes us walk into a shop in the first place. It's no, I know, and it's there's millions of little things going in. And it's only when you can, and if you walk down a street thinking, why am I doing this? You'll find yourself making different decisions. But even then, the subconscious brain takes over. And there's some really great studies where they tell people first, if we show you this, you will do this. And then they still do it. And you're like, wow. And it just shows you how kind of like minded we are by what's gone before and things like that. And it's, it's fascinating. And it goes back to that thing of another study you can read about how to engage with a brand. And it takes 6 to 15 mentions of your brand for people to actually engage with you. And they can be in any old shape and form. And social media today is probably a brilliant way of that, because it's really easy to get people to see your brand on social media, and then actually think about, don't try and get them to buy online, get them to come into your store, because if they come into your store, just browsing around the store, they'll see your brand name 3 or 4 times, and actually that could be the 15th time that makes them go, you know what, I'm going to buy. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. You obviously researched that, especially this area very, very, very strongly. I was, fully enough, I was told by a friend of mine a long time ago, and he the research he'd done, and I can't tell you where the research was from or the research he'd found, was that the brain struggles to process the number 7. Yes. So it tends to sort of round it down rather than up, was the inference. Yeah. So if you wanted to, sort of get your price down a bit more, if that was important, as we've said, it probably isn't. But the 7 just almost confuses the brain, so the price becomes less relevant. I don't know if that's something that you've come across. Yeah, totally. It is, and you can see it. Asda do it all the time, because a lot of their products prices ending at 7. So if value is important, doing a 97 is actually preferable to a 99. You've got the magic 9 there, but then you've also got the 7 for the confusion factor. But yeah, there's a lot of crazy, and it changes from culture to culture. So in China, for example, 8's a lucky number. Yes. So prices ending in 88. are more likely to get a sale. And for example, I mean, to say in Japan, for example, they have so give you a British product and a York product is the Kit Kat. And in their culture, Kit Kat is very similar to a word they have for like good luck. So
Right.
Kit Kats are a luxury product over there, and they change the flavour every 6 weeks because they love new flavours. And they sell for about £2 a box. They come in a little box with a little silver cellophane packet inside, all wacky flavours from fish to all sorts of crazy ones. And it's because they're bought as in a different way. They're bought as like a good luck card.
Yeah.
And it's what people do. So but it's an everyday treat, but also for a good luck. So if someone going for a job interview, someone going for a driving test, somebody's birthday, and it's just and that's where a brand have actually cottoned on to something in an international market.
Yeah.
That's worked, and it's gone back for decades. So it
absolutely fascinating. And Phil, you're probably aware we're a coaching organisation, a business coaching organisation, and I'm just keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sports, life in general.
So I think sometimes it's just kind of, I think it's good to get mentors. Mentors are very important, but I think it's also good to be a mentor, and to help other businesses below you as well. I think that's also very, very important, and something I do that gives help others out. And but no, in terms of business coaches, don't be afraid to ask people, because you can't be an expert in everything, and it is really good to kind of share it around, and just because you've got a good idea, it doesn't make you a master at everything. So that is really important, to kind of ask for that next level of help.
It's really.
I think we've got a bit of time delay.
I think we do a little bit, I'm afraid. It's an interesting point that you say, actually, because that one of the things we always say is the best way to teach something the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. So that your point about being a mentor is as important as having mentors. And I think that bang on. So, Phil, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings in business that you fall back on a regular basis?
I think they change all the time for me, and I tag along to them for a while. I think my favourite one at the minute has to be "We'll plough our own furrow," which is what Ben said as we left the den. It's something he's never ever said before, and he said it to Peter Jones as we left the den. So we're currently ploughing our own furrow. It's a nice little phrase because it fits well. I live on a farm, so it even fits better. I said, "Are we going to go buy a new tractor now?" We're ploughing our own furrow. But yeah, there are, and I think it is important to kind of like attach yourself to sayings and quotes, because it's sort of that little poet that's in all of us, that it'll help you and it'll give you some inspiration. And I think that's why mine change a lot, because at different times I need different inspirations, and at the minute, hence why I'm sticking to plough our own furrow, is because we're expanding rapidly. We're doubling in size of the business in the next year. We're probably going to open 3 new venues, and then also on the verge of this huge deal in America. So when I say what our forecast will be for next year, that's without the expansion, and that's without opening any of these stores. So next year is really going to be a truly, make or break year, I suppose. Amazing year ahead, because we're doing so many things on so many different levels, and we're bringing in the skills as well. We've got I think we've got 6 new staff starting in the next 6 weeks to take charge of different elements of the business, which I think will really drive us forward. And like I said, bringing in those key skills and the advice and the help when you need it.
Brilliant. We'll just call it a make year, shall we? I think that's the best way to look at that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Absolutely fantastic. And what would you say, Phil, you've learned about yourself through your journey?
I'm probably I don't think it's going to be hard. I am not very good at being self-critical.
So I'm always right. I'm never wrong, which apparently is wrong. But yeah. I'm incredibly impossible to deal with and very difficult, or can be, as probably my two ex-wives and my current wife will tell you. But yeah, no. And I think sometimes life traits you take a long time to realize. So yeah, for me, for example, I'm a bit of a dick, and God, my wife's gonna love watching this one. And I think that's it. It's like sometimes you just, like, for me, it's my way or no way. And it's realizing that having a business partner and, having, we're now responsible for over 36 staff and growing, be over 40 by the end of the month, is that it can't be like that. You've got to realize that is actually a weakness as well as being a strength, because, at times we just need to make a decision.
Yeah.
And Ben, for example, as my business partner, is just starting to realize that his weakness has always been saying yes. So he's now standing up to me, which makes me realize that I've been a bit of a dick, because but to be honest, it's got the business to this stage, and I think neither of us would have regretted it until now, but it now makes some very heated board meetings, which could be fun as well. So because I love a good row. But yeah, and I think it is that thing I would say of look for your positives, but also try and say, what are your negatives? Because I think we're all very hard at being self-critical.
Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it? And clearly the balance between you and Ben has been successful, and we really need it, because we do need some form of balance to how we operate. But as you rightly say, you've got to heal with the team, with the team and the behaviours you both got, and that's brilliant. And the self-awareness will help perhaps move things forward in a slightly different way. But it's drawing on all those strengths that you do have. So looking forward, Phil, what you've mentioned the growth you're looking at, but what does the future look like for you guys, and what would be the main challenges you face, if any, do you think?
I think the main challenges we're going to face are moving forward as we expand. So currently everything we do is within like an hour and a half of York,
right?
So by car and by train, because the train line to Blackpool's crap. But moving to Edinburgh, yes, it's 2 hours by train, but like at the minute, if, for example, I'm sort of the handyman currently for the business, so should all the lights trip, I'd be the first person to go to the venue and check what's going on. If the burglar alarms are going off, it'd be me that goes and checks that kind of thing. So I think, and not just for myself, but also like Ben, dealing with the kind of finances is as we grow into different venues in London and Edinburgh on the horizon. It's how we manage that from afar, but well, and making sure we've got venue managers in place that are repeating what we've done well elsewhere, but in satellite locations, and making sure the brand doesn't suffer, I think is probably going to be the next big thing. And likewise, across the pond, we've now got a US distributor, and we're probably going to be on for doing as many drinks in America next year as we do in the UK, if not double, because America's such a big place. And it's how we make sure that what we want our brand to be gets picked up in America, and we're not just another soft drinks brand. So that's going to be challenging, I think, but equally very rewarding. But we just got to make sure that we don't let it become a beast that we didn't want it to be. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now, Phil?
There is no better time. I said this week already in another interview I did for TV following Dragon's Den. There is no better time, because there are some amazing deals to be done with landlords. And I'm happy to give anybody advice on doing deals with landlords, because they can be a beast into themselves. I'm negotiating deals where they're giving us cash up front, never mind rent-free deals. So there are some amazing deals to be done. If you've got the right vision and the right thing that would enhance their, often landlords will own more than one shop in an area. They'll own, 20 or 30 shops in an area. So if you can find a landlord like that, you can do some pretty good deals, because they want their other shops to benefit as well. And they want to be able to put everyone's rents up is their ultimate goal, but they can only do that if the street is successful. So that's why landlords will do deals, because they want to bring up the whole area. So that said, there is no better time to open a shop. And the other thing, people panic about opening shops and retail premises is that, oh, the future's online. Well, let's not forget that only 1/5 of all the spending we spend is online. 80% of what we spend still is in shops. So whilst online is huge and continues to be so because of tax breaks in this country that allow that to be, with the current rateable values for this year, the current things, I would say there is no better time to open a shop premises right now. So if your business is focused on a shop premises or a premises on the high street, even an office, I would say go and do it, because you are going to get some amazing deals right now. And actually, the economy being as it is, really difficult, really tough, it's the best time to start as well, because if you can manage to get a client, whatever you're doing, if it's B2B, B2C, and if you can go and get some clients right now, trust me, when the times are good, you're going to be flying.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it. I absolutely love that. And if you started again, is there anything that you think significantly you do different?
With this business, not really, I don't think. I'd try and stop COVID happening. But yeah, I think the only thing I would do differently is I think I would have focused on the online a little bit earlier. Because, you know, during COVID, that probably could have finished us. If it hadn't been for the grant system coming in and giving us some money, that delay to getting online set up was a real issue. And we only didn't do it. And it's crazy, really, because my previous business was all online. So it wasn't even like I didn't have the experience of doing online. It was difficult because of shipping glass bottles. But if something's difficult, that doesn't mean you should push it under the carpet. And I would say that's more reason to look at it again. And in the end, who'd have thought that Royal Mail would be the best people for shipping glass bottles? You know, we've tried everyone from DPD to TNT and they all had breakages, whereas Royal Mail have been absolutely amazing and you know, continue to be to this day. We ship, you know, over 10,000 parcels a year with them, and they probably break about 1 a year. So yeah, and usually that's our fault as well, because we failed to put a. So yeah, our number of breakages is. I think I have less breakages now with glass bottles than I did with cufflinks, which says a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, that does say a lot. That's fascinating. And finally, Phil, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
Probably don't like wedding cake so much. No, a joke. I would say that because at 18, I literally, I've never been to university. I dropped out of school. And I was very worried about the road ahead. And I would say, don't be worried, because actually you're going to meet some great people along the way and you can have a really great journey. And, you know, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've had some very big lows. I've had some very big highs. And to be honest, it's all been fun. Looking back on it, obviously, you know, when you're in the middle of those things and the lows, it's not so much fun. But actually, yeah, I wouldn't want to be a spoil sport breaking if I went back to the future and was able to do that. But yeah, I would say don't panic. It's going to be good fun.
Brilliant. Great words of advice for anybody. Actually, I think that's that's fascinating. Well, Phil, thanks so much for your time. And just for anyone that would like to get in touch with yourself or the Potions Cauldron, what would be the best way to do so?
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Pinderphil, or the Potions Cauldron. Just go to our website, so it's thepotionscauldron.com, and you can drop us a message through there as well. Brilliant.
Well, thanks so much, and it'd be great to swing by in another sort of 6-12 months and just see the next stage of your development.
Yeah, I hope I might be sat in Las Vegas by then. Who knows?
That works. That definitely works for me. Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chris. Speak to you soon, mate. Take care.
Thanks.